An unusual topic comes up in Maryland's transportation planning. Good evening. This is CTV News. I'm Byron Scott.
And I'm Patricia Vallone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Well, approximately 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust by the time Nazi Germany surrendered in 1945.
A rail company that assisted the Nazis is now vying for a major transit project here in Maryland. Rochelle Metzger is here now to tell us about efforts in Annapolis to make the company and others pay before it can conduct business in the state.
That's right, Byron. Patty, this bill is really about accountability and justice. Now, you may be surprised to learn that there is a connection between the Holocaust in Europe and the Purple Line light rail project here in Maryland. French rail company SNCF is one of 4 businesses bidding on a contract to build that planned railway. Well, during World War II, the Nazis used SNCF trains to transport 76,000 Jews and other prisoners to concentration camps. Well, there was a hearing on a measure today in Annapolis that seeks to tie the contracts to reparations for survivors here in the U.S. Rosette Goldstein is a survivor who now lives in Florida. She lost her father in the Holocaust. He was a passenger on one of those trains.
They were paid per head and per kilometer to take 76,000 French Jews and American airmen, 11,000 children, to their death in their death trains. And they have to be held accountable.
The bill seeks to force SNCF to provide reparations to the victims that they transported to Auschwitz. They have done so already, as I mentioned earlier, in France. They've done it throughout Europe based on treaties that they have signed with their European neighbors. They have continuously negotiated but have not been able to come to any resolution with the United States in that same capacity. So what we're asking them to do is hold up their responsibility.
They have to come to the table. They have to give us justice. They have to give us reparation and look us in the eye and say, we are sorry for all your loss.
Goldstein came to Maryland to testify on behalf of her friend and a fellow survivor, Leo Breatholtz of Pikesville, who passed away over the weekend at the age of 93. And another survivor has passed, someone who can tell firsthand what happened in the Holocaust. Now, he was a passenger on one of those trains, and she read his testimony during a hearing today in Annapolis. He tells a story. Now, these weren't air-conditioned trains by far. I mean, they were going to their deaths, but many died on the way to these camps. These trains did not have air conditioning. They barely had food. They did not have water. Many people died. And then once they got to the camps, many of the passengers on the train were forced to clean up those trains, including the bodies, once they arrived. It was a horrific experience. And really, this is about getting justice for those survivors who fled to the United States after the war. As the delegate said, many of those in Europe and in France have received reparations from this company.
And will this apply only to this particular light rail or this particular rail company?
Well, speaking to Delegate Resnick, he said that right now this company, SNCF, is the only one they know of that's bidding for a contract in Maryland that's directly tied to the Holocaust. But this will put in place measures so that moving forward, if a company is bidding on a contract and it's found out, that this will apply to them as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Rochelle. Well, despite getting a thumbs up from the House of Delegates, a redistricting plan is being heavily criticized. Republicans say it is gerrymandering in an attempt to oust GOP Congressman Roscoe Bartlett in Western Maryland. Some Democrats say the map reflects population growth in the suburbs of the nation's capital. Still, State Representative Aisha Braveboy says her vote against it will be a symbolic one to show that Maryland can do better to reflect minority growth from the 2010 census. The state's congressional districts are redrawn every 10 years in response to census data.
Well, another push for the D.C. football team to change its name, this time from a lawmaker in Annapolis. Delegate C.T. Wilson has introduced a resolution on the issue. Late last year, several members of Congress also voiced concern over the team's current name. They all agree with some Native Americans who say it is simply offensive.
We understand that basically the term redskin comes from the piece of skin that had to be on a scalp before an individual could get a bounty for killing an Indian. And that's what it is. And to say somehow this is honorific when it's come from a time of brutality in violence against an Indian people. And knowing all that our country has done basically to eradicate a civilization in the name of manifest destiny, you'd think that this would be something a little easier to do and people be a little more open-minded. There's no doubt that our American Indians have been through a lot culturally, and I think this is just about time.
A copy of the resolution is being sent to the Governor Martin O'Malley's office and the owner of the D.C. team, Dan Snyder. Patricia?
Well, they may have called you or approached you on the street, solicitors asking for charitable donations. The organization's name sounds credible, the website looks genuine, and they ask for a modest contribution. Seems legitimate, right? Well, not always. Delegate Dan Morheim says that is how the scam charities manage to raise millions of dollars each year from well-meaning Marylanders.
Names, things that will help veterans or police or maybe women with breast cancer or disease state. And then very, very little of the money, sometimes less than 1%, actually goes to help people. The rest is kept by those who are organizing the charity or their solicitors. That's the state.
And Morheim says Maryland lags behind other states when it comes to monitoring and regulating these scams. He's working with state agencies on legislation that will help ensure donations are used for their stated purpose and not to line someone else's pockets.
Increases enforcement, gives the Attorney General more power to investigate, shut down bad charities if necessary, but also increases the ability for the legitimate nonprofits to raise money and to do their registrations online so there's a database. Because one of the things that happens when people feel burned by a charity that's not legitimate, then they often don't give at all.
And there are many resources available to help residents sort the scam charities from real and worthy causes. To see tips from the Federal Trade Commission on avoiding charity fraud, visit consumer.ftc.gov. You can also search the Maryland database or report concerns about a charity on the Secretary of State's website at sos.state.md.us.
Well, she took an oath to protect and serve, but tonight D.C. police officer Aisha McCrary faces a number of charges, including insurance fraud and attempted theft. Investigators in Prince George's County, where she lives, say the officer filed fake claims on official police department letterhead. She then lied, allegedly, when she said to her police radio and laptop and other items were damaged during a water leak in her apartment. McCrary allegedly sent letters to the insurance company using the name of a tech supervisor who doesn't exist. She'll be arraigned next week. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Byron Scott.
And I'm Patricia Vallone.